We all know that the history of modern computers started out around the late 1930s and culminated with the first proper models being developed during the later stages of the Second World War. And while there are some minor, civilized arguments about who really invented the modern computer, the three countries that most often come up in this discussion are the United Kingdom, the US, and Germany. So, with three of the major powers of World War II involved in the development of the digital computer, this leaves us with one major question. What the heck were the Soviets doing? Considering that a few years later they would make up 50% of all nations involved in the space race, one has to wonder why we hardly ever hear of the Soviet computer industry. Did it not exist? Did it die leading a heroic charge to take the Reichstag in Berlin? Or was it found guilty of anti-Soviet behavior and executed? Grab onto your hammers and sickles and let's find out. Keeping it short, yes, there was a Soviet computer industry, and it saw its beginnings with projects initiated in the late 1940s. The first universal computer to be produced in the Soviet Union was called MESM, and it went into official use in 1951. With the ability to perform automatic calculations, state planners were then quick to point out the use of computers for planning the economy. And everyone loved that. But do you know what they didn't love? Computers. Yes, indeed. Not even 5 years after creating their modern computer, a silicon scare hit the Soviet Union after an influential news article criticizing Western ideas of cybernetics was published. And if the capitalists like computers, well, we don't like them. Luckily, this sentiment was largely revised after Stalin caught to death, and computers saw expanded use in military and governmental institutions. However, considering there was no private industry or, for that matter, consumer demand, there was never any dynamic to expand the Soviet computer production capacity like there was in the West. For example, while the first serially produced computer in the USSR, the Strela, only reached a quantity of 7 units built, the first commercial computer in the US, the UNIVAC 1, shipped a total of 46 units alone. Thus, in the following years, Western computer industries kept expanding at a rate that the Soviets simply could not match, even before the Steve Squared duo brought the personal computer to world fame. Thus, a decision needed to be made, and one fateful meeting was to decide the future of Comrade computer in the Soviet system. It probably went a lot like this. Comrades, we are falling behind the West. If this continues, their potatoes will be able to run Crisis before we can run Doom. What are your suggestions? Increase support to our researchers and manufacturers. Supply computers to the public. Just pirate Western technology. And so, the Soviet computer industry was saved and the superiority of communism proved once more. Well, not really. While the state-approved copying of Western technology started as early as the 1960s, it did not result in the development of an independent industry like it would be done in China some decades later. Rather, the Union was, for the rest of its existence, kept in a permanent state of waiting for and then copying new technologies, thus lagging behind by default. Practically, the Soviet computer industry was indeed found guilty of anti-Soviet behavior and could never really recover from the initial stigma and systematic constraints upon its development. Well, luckily one can hack American systems with capitalist technology too, am I right?